Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hey everybody, we're back. It's David, Mike, and Greg talking about all things local and mostly Google. And this week we're going to be talking about the House Fresh ranking screed and its implications. We're also going to be talking about Google potentially unifying LSA and Google Business Profile reviews in a sort of single function. And then we'll be talking about the Department of Justice's closing slides, or some of the closing slides, in the antitrust case that just wrapped this week. So, Mike, why don't you lead us off with the LSA item?
Sure. So I've been in regular communication with some legitimate carpet cleaners in London who have been complaining about Google LSA spam in their marketplace, particularly fake reviews and fake review attacks. And they alerted me yesterday afternoon that LSA clients in England have been getting a notification that their LSA customer review URL will expire on July 7th of this year, and that it will be replaced with the URL from GBP, and customer reviews in general will be managed from Google Business Profile, not the local service ads account. And once this change takes place, you must have an affiliated Google local business profile to run local service ads, and that the reviews will service on both local service ads and the Google Business Profile. So apparently they took my advice and decided to implement the Google Business Profile review filters, moderation process, all of that, which makes a tremendous amount of sense, given that the infrastructure was significantly more robust. Now, when I say that, you have to take all of that with a grain of salt, because I guess half of an orange is better than no orange. And the Google GBP review infrastructure is half an orange. But starting in 2022, GBP improved their review algo, their filtering algo. They put in place, subsequent to that, later in 2023, a review moderation process where business could go and dispute reviews and appeal that process. And it was a formal process, and you actually got feedback and a case number. In the LSAs, they didn't have anything until last year when they finally implemented a form. You could use the form, but you got no feedback that the form was even received, let alone if they were working on it. So you had no idea what was happening to these reviews. And the only way to possibly get a review taken down was to hammer that form multiple times with no feedback.
So, Mike, why don't you tell us why those two review universes were separate in the first place? Because some people
this speaks to the bigger question of how Google develops products in silos. A team comes up with an idea. In this case, the idea was to produce a paid product that had verified businesses, verified reviews, that could clean up the cesspool that was home services in Google Local. And when they first rolled it out, of course, the businesses were heavily vetted and verified. The reviews were, in fact, verified reviews from a person who actually did business. As time went on, so that was one silo. And instead of partnering up on parts of that, like the reviews, they did in typical Google fashion. And also in typical Google fashion, they were pressured to scale this. And when they did, they reduced all of the vetting requirements and processes, and they reduced the strictness around reviews. So both ended up becoming totally rampant with spam.
And I would add, my guess would be that the person or team involved in setting the product up moved to another division at Google to advance their careers inside of Google. And so there's no institutional knowledge left on the LSA team about the potential for review fraud.
So who knows? I mean, again, this reflects.
Those jobs have been outsourced to Mexico now, David.
as has the review process been outsourced to India. So it reflects how Google does business. They had a lot of knowledge about review abuse. They knew this was coming. They did it anyways. They built a crappy product. It appears that either through cost cutting or some forced merging, or perhaps the law, I don't know. UK and in Europe in general, Google has more responsibility around the reviews, And perhaps that has precipitated this change. We don't know that it's going to be rolled out globally. It's likely that it will, because it makes sense that it's an integrated single system. It would make even more sense if they devoted real resources to it and continued to improve it, particularly both the algorithm and the moderation process. But it's just so speaks to how Google builds these things in a vacuum because of engineer interest, and then keeps them in a silo, and they have to perform up to a certain level. Either they get capped or they get nuked. And so typically you don't see cross-team development, which is a tragedy, because this was a perfect opportunity for that, and it didn't happen, and there's been a lot of abuses as a result. No.
Yeah, the idea that Google can create mediocre products and sort of let them ride without consequences speaks to their status as a monopoly in the market. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Right. Historically, LSA reviews were sort of market driven. Initially, they had to be associated with a real business. That sort of fell away. Now they are going to once again, starting I think from this March, but through this process in the UK, they're being forced to be associated with a Google My Business listing. So there's some vetting of the veracity of the business on two levels. But then again, I read today from Chris Barnard that they've reduced any requirements around where you can show an LSA ad. So with this contraction of users, and Google is sort of trying to expand where you can show an ad. So particularly in legal, that's likely to lead to a huge escalation of pricing, like in the legal space. Being a California lawyer can work in any place in California, and they can't show their GBP any place in California. So being able to show an LSA ad anywhere in California would be a very powerful advertising vehicle. So
to which Google says, "Oh darn, what an unfortunate what an unfortunate outcome."
Yeah. Yes. So Google gives and Google takes it away. Their development process historically sucked, and this just shows it.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.